Pod for Good is sponsored by Tallgrass Estate Planning. If you're like me, you might hear estate planning and go, You might think to yourself, I'm not sure why I'd bother with that. Estate planning is only for the uber rich.
Well, that's not what Tallgrass thinks. Tallgrass founding attorneys Laurel and Riley think everyone should have an estate plan. They know estate planning seems untouchable to a lot of folks, like something you have to do inside a stuffy law firm where it feels like everyone is looking down on you, questioning your life decisions, and judging your financial situation.
But I promise you, Tallgrass is nothing like that. For one, they work out of their home so their clients can feel at home. They obsess over making clients feel like they belong and are supposed to be there. They will take time to answer all of your questions, even those uncomfortable ones involving ex-spouses. They will work relentlessly to make sure your plan is exactly what you need to feel secure, at peace, and prepared for whatever the future has planned.
So if you've been putting off planning for what's going to happen when you're no longer around to make anything happen, it's time for you to give Tallgrass a call at 918-770-8940 and start your plan today. Or visit their website at tallgrassestatePlanning.com. Schedule a free initial consultation. It's easy, it's free, it's right there on their website.
And of course, there's more because this is a podcast ad. If you tell them you're a Pod for Good listener, they're going to take 25% off their service fees. Stop thinking estate planning isn't for you and give Tallgrass a call today. Again, that number is 918-770-8940 or visit them on their website, but I'm not going to spell it out for you, tallgrassestateplanning.com. Thank you again, Tallgrass Estate Planning, for being a Pod for Good sponsor. Welcome to another episode of Pod for Good, a podcast where we learn from those doing good in Tulsa, why they care, what we can do, and most importantly, what you can do. Pod for Good is produced and edited by Rant9 Productions, and I must mention this because I've spoken to multiple people over the past 2 weeks who also don't know. I also edit podcasts. Rant9 Productions is my company. I just want to make that clear. Anyway, this podcast and all Rant9 production podcasts can be found anywhere you get your podcasts. I'm your chief philanthropod and podcast editor, Jesse Ulrich.
And I am your vice admiral philanthropod. And what do you call somebody who makes it difficult for somebody to edit?
Chris.
Chris Miller.
And today, our guest is Marcela Swenson, executive director of Tulsa Responds.
We talked to Marcela about building a plane while flying it during a pandemic, the amazing projects of Tulsa Responds, and enjoy the extrovert-fueled chaos of our first in-person podcast in months.
Enjoy, everybody. We are very excited to have Marcela Swenson from Tulsa Responds on the podcast today.
Responds or response?
I'm pretty sure it's Responds.
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 Yes, responds.
See, if you put a Z at the end,
Yes.
people would know. Tulsa Responds.
I got
All
you.
right, hold on. I'm going to have to go change the URL
All right.
to
Yeah.
responds. Because then we feel like fun and young.
Yeah, and
Young,
hip.
hip.
Yeah.
Young.
Yeah,
That's
young and hip. If it was the late '90s, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
That was anyway. We're recording in person, so this episode's going to be a lot more hectic and
Chaotic. Yeah.
We're just feeling kind of punch drunk that we're
Yeah.
in front of
Yes.
people we
Yeah.
haven't seen, like outside of our circle of 5 people.
We're back
Yeah.
in Rant 9's nerd recording studio, which
Yeah.
means we got to bring back our favorite question.
Mm-hmm.
So, Marcela, this episode will come out near the end of April, but April is sort of the birthday month of Tulsa Responds. Can you give us, like, at the time the idea first brought up till the day those first trainings, like, tell us about what it originally was supposed to be, right? What was phase 1 of Tulsa Responds?
So Tulsa Responds was supposed to be an 8-week task force. Just 8 weeks. It was to help small businesses apply for SBA funding through the federal government and also through TEDC. So it was going to be 8 weeks. We tell you how to apply for the loans, what you qualify for, answer any questions, and then in 8 weeks you can apply for forgiveness. And that was kind of going to be the end of it. I don't think that they still know what the forgiveness process is, so we would have kept going. That 8 weeks never came to fruition. But within those 8 weeks, then they started finding other applications for Tulsa Responds. And Tulsa Responds, what we are is a contract worker navigation service, basically. I can probably think of a more succinct and exciting way to describe that. But do you want me to do the whole origin story?
Yeah, I want to hear the
Okay.
origin story because I think for our listeners, I've been a Tulsa Responds navigator from the beginning, and it
Cool
was
title.
Yeah, he was one of the very first.
And it was so magically chaotic there for the first couple weeks when the laws about what the loans were and how they operated were changing hourly. Where so we would get trained and then have to get retrained like the next morning. and I was just a navigator. So I didn't even think about what was happening behind the scenes until like 2 months later. And so I'm just very curious about what it was like from your end, because you were employed at Atento Capital at the time, and this was supposed to be just a project of yours for those 8 weeks, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, let's talk about the pre-phase one.
So about a week prior to the creation of Tulsa Responds, Mike Bosch of Atento Capital said, hey, so we're probably going to put together like a workforce of contractors to help give advice on and guidance on how to apply for SBA loans, just like putting that on your radar. Cool. So then fast forward a week, had a meeting with Suzanne Schreiber at GKFF and Mike and a few other folks at GKFF and kind of laid out the vision for what it was going to be. So my marching orders were to get around 12 navigators. We were going to try to study up on what the SBA loan guidance was. And then we were going to create a website, promote it, and try to get as many local businesses in Tulsa to contact us so that they knew how to apply for the SBA loans. And the goal was we want as many Tulsa businesses to apply for this funding as possible before that money runs out, because we want to bring as many federal dollars from DC to Tulsa. And so that was the main thrust of Tulsa Responds. So April 1st was when we had our first phone call. The next day we had a meeting with GetWit at 8 a.m. and said, here's what we're doing. And can you create a website by noon for so that Mayor G.T. Bynum can announce this program during his press conference at noon? And they're like, yeah, sure, let's go, because they are magical wizards. And in the meantime, I'm reaching out to every person that I've ever met, and I've only lived in Tulsa at this point for 3 months, maybe a little less than 3 months. So Jesse got a call, and every person I knew and every person that they knew and pretty much every child of a GKFF employee heard about this. And so it was a lot of students who had to come back from college because their classes were canceled, people who were hourly workers like wait staff whose hours have been cut because we can't go to restaurants anymore. And that was the majority of our workforce. And I think we had around 30 people when we started. I think we had a training session. I actually still have this recorded on my computer. And when I am feeling emotionally ready, I'm going to watch it. And I'll also say, oh, look at how different and lighter you look. Like, I have 10 years worth of stress just packed into my face now. So that's what I need to prepare myself to watch. So we had a meeting and we're like, hey guys, this is going to be really fast and furious. R.I.P. to Paul Walker. Sorry. Had to work that in there.
Understand.
It still hurts me. So
Family.
I don't have friends. I got family.
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 Family?
Family. Family.
Your family. I love you.
Started out small to a real bond, cause we're brothers first.
thank you. I truly am still sad about Paul Walker dying. Okay, so we had a few meetings and said this is gonna, the guidance on these loans is going to change very quickly. We just all have to be flexible. And that's, I think, when the phrase building the plane while flying it came into our organization. And that is still something we use today, over a year later, much to my chagrin. So we did a few training sessions. We were getting all of this guidance from this law firm about what the loans were, what you needed to qualify for it. And then we get an update like 5 hours later, like, just kidding, here's what you actually need to do, and here's how you can actually qualify, et cetera. So that was kind of the MO for the next few days. And I literally was just glued to my phone or my computer for the next 2 weeks, like taking bathroom breaks and food, like eating and sleeping. That was a luxury that I sometimes allowed myself to take. And so that went really well. We had over 700 businesses contact us by that Sunday. I think we had our navigators first started making phone calls that Saturday. So it was like we see all of these notifications coming in like, you have this many people who want your help. And we're like, oh my gosh, we don't have any, like, we don't know what we're doing still, but it will come. This will happen. So that was the first like 3 or 4 days. And then 700 businesses had contacted us. I think by the end, we had about 1,500 businesses over maybe a month that reached out. And our navigators just did an amazing job of being super flexible, rolling with the punches, trying to be as helpful as they possibly could be, knowing that they didn't necessarily have all the answers. But I think one thing that was really comforting for the businesses on the other side of the email or phone is that they had someone to listen to them and that they could ask questions and that could at least sympathize with what they were going through. And if you can remember back to over a year ago when we thought this was going to be like a 2-week shutdown, and then it was so much longer than that. So, but the thing that I kept thinking about is the small businesses, the people who had poured everything into their small business, knowing that was their nest egg, that was their passion, and that it just was wiped out in a matter of days or weeks. And my husband started a restaurant in Chicago where we were living before we moved to Tulsa. And I just was thinking, like, if his restaurant was wiped out in kind of the blink of an eye, how awful that would feel. So I think that really kept us going. That kept me going and foregoing all of the essentials like food, sleep, bio breaks. So then as we kept going on, Mike and Suzanne were like, hey, we think we could use Tulsa Responds for something else. And the common thread was, what were we doing in Tulsa before the pandemic that is either in more demand because of the pandemic, or it needs to be done in a way that it can't be because of the pandemic? So one of those projects was Yes on 802. Normally, volunteers would be canvassing to get out the vote and make sure that people were voting yes or no on the ballot question that would expand Medicaid to Oklahoma. And because we couldn't do that because of the pandemic, enter Tulsa Responds. And so we set up kind of a mini call center and had people calling all day long for, I think, like 2 weeks. And in the end, that ballot question passed by less than, I think it was 7,000 votes, which was less than a percentage point, which is wild. And so not saying that was directly you can't directly attribute that to Tulsa Responds, but I think if any one effort that was being made to pass Yes on 802, if they hadn't been doing that thing, I don't think it would have passed. So that felt really great to get that win so early on in our organization's existence. And then some other things were, we worked on the census. I learned very quickly that random people calling you to tell you to fill out the census, the people who answer are the people who've already filled out the census. We started working on an internet project to help families that don't have internet in their home get 1 year of internet.
I've got more detailed questions about this later.
Oh, should I mean, so that's kind of the origin. Yeah. I can stop there. Now you know, and now we're a year into it and we've worked on like 7 or 8 projects.
It seems like it's now a sort of staff for hire for specific projects where if you need a team of 20 people to interact with either businesses or groups of people or to do something like someone can just, for example, like the Tulsa Remote interviews, right? Tulsa Remote sort of opened their doors during this pandemic and were, I would say, slammed with applications. And they obviously with the GKFF connection, like got connected to you, and I started doing those because, again, I was an extrovert trapped in my house, and I was getting paid to meet new people. It was great. You know, we're really
kind of mercenaries.
Yeah,
for good.
Yeah, mercenaries for good. Yes.
Yeah.
I want that on a shirt.
Yes. Mercenaries for good.
Yeah.
I like that.
I want to transition to talk about the internet program a lot because that one was the first time I feel like Tulsa Responds was partnering with more than just like organizations. That was like a large for-profit company, the city, and was dealing with a Cox, which was the internet service we were working with here, also had deals in sort of other states and cities that we were dealing with. And I also got COVID during this time, so my memory
gosh.
of parts of this are a little foggy. But it seems to be working now, right? Ish.
Yeah, and so 8 of those 10 years of stress that I now inhabit on my face, that came from this project, and it still continues to be stressful. But so this was the first time that we kind of, the previous projects we worked on, we were fit into an existing organization. So our first project was TEDC had already been doing loans for small businesses. Now we are the conduit to help them do more. For Yes on 802, you're not developing a new program on how to get people to vote. You're just calling people on the phone. But we call this project Tulsa Connects, which is a partnership between the 3 school districts in Tulsa, Cox, and the city of Tulsa, and Tulsa Responds to help the families who don't have internet in their home get 1 year of free internet if they have to meet certain requirements. And because that's something that never existed before, we actually had to create the outreach method, and things were so, like, we were blazing a trail. And so we learned so much from this of where Tulsa Responds can be the most effective and where we should say, like, you know what? This is not the best use of your money and our time. And so it has been very valuable in learning a lesson. But what the hardest thing is that you're taking 3 really big entities. So the city of Tulsa, then you're taking a for-profit business, Cox, and then you're taking 3 school districts, so I guess you can call it 5 entities. And you're trying to get them all to do something together in concert. And your key customer your only customer are people who don't have the internet, and you can't see them in person. So how are you going to get them to take your service? And so learned a lot, still learning a lot, but I think timing had a lot to do with it, and things just took forever. The negotiation period of, like, how do we, like, getting everyone to say yes to this program, just it takes a long time because everyone has different interests that they need to have met, which makes complete sense. But I wish that we'd started back in May.
I remember there was just a lot of time waiting for the city and Cox to finalize their deal, and we're just sort of sitting there. And I just remember the most frustrating part was trying to make that flow chart of, like, the steps from someone coming into our system, and then all the steps where yes or no, they would go this way or that way. And because we still didn't have the finalized contract, it's kind of hard to set a path where you don't know where the path ends. So I'd worked in call centers before, so I was trying to summarize, like, yeah, this might happen, but it's going to happen so rarely. Let's not worry about that. Like, trying to make a simplified flow chart, and you were trying to make a very, like, robust, I want to make sure everything's on here flow chart. And I was just like, we don't even know if these things exist yet. It was nuts. It was crazy.
And that detailed flow chart just scratched the surface of what would now, if I were to make a flow chart now, of what that would look like. And I basically gave up on the flow chart because every time something was updated, then it was just like, well, now all of this is worthless. We still see new things popping up, and there were things that were told that this is how it'll work. And then when the rubber met the road, it's like, actually, it looks nothing like this at all. And we didn't even get to start until October. And when a lot of people had already started to get, some people just bit the bullet and started subscribing to the internet, and then to the internet, to Cox or whatever.
Please.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so then they were no longer eligible.
So how did you contact people who don't have the, because I know it's a problem with that a lot of nonprofits we've talked to trying to get people to use their service, use government services, get signed up for the vaccines. So how did you contact people who?
So I'm still trying to crack that nut of, like, how to effectively get to not just contact people, but get them to trust you, that you're offering a service that they want and that they should respond to. So phone is the best, text message also, and then person-to-person contact. And so now that we're starting to open up a little bit and people are able to get vaccinations, we're working on doing in-person signups. I'll let you know how those go.
Yeah.
But the answer is there is no silver bullet.
Yeah.
I was hoping that text messages would be that silver bullet. We sent 12,000 text messages to TPS families, and we had 400 actually respond to us. So that's been the best
Yeah.
market, like that's been the best tool that we've had, and that's a percent of a percent. So the answer is no.
Yeah.
We did not. There just isn't a way. That is, I think that there's a technological divide that goes pretty deep. And one thing that I learned recently that explained a lot is that one of the school districts said that they gave families hotspots and devices, and that even still, some of those families didn't use them. And so if a family is not going to do that, then they're definitely not going to see a text message or some flyer or whatever, and then call us up or send us an email if they have some access to the internet to get a subscription to the internet. So that explains why we had a lot less uptake than we had been anticipating.
Well, and I can imagine I think probably a good 5 scam text messages a week, and I don't even know how many scam phone calls. And I imagine that doesn't help as well, that people don't know whether to trust the text messages they get.
I think that's exactly right. That mistrust is a big part. It's also possible that their text messages go to some unknown number folder if they have an iPhone, or they see it and they ignore it. I think that the trust is a huge part, and that's one of the things that we want to make inroads over time. But that there's no fast forwarding the trust component. But over time, I think that will be our best method to getting families connected with services like these in the future. But there is something deeper going on, that it's either that the families don't have the time, like they're like, my kid doesn't even like doing the Zoom classroom, so I'm not going to spend any of my time trying to force this to happen. I think that it's just the pandemic revealed so many societal issues that we have, so many deficits and gaps. I'm saying all the same words, just different versions of them, but there's a deeper thing. There's a deeper underlying issue, and I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
If you've seen The Wire, it's not just one thing; it's like 5 things all at the same time that make people, like, keep people in a situation. And so hopefully we can address more of them as time goes on.
I don't think I ever told you this, Chris, but one of the things I remember happening was, so the city wanted to pay for people who either had or would qualify for a federal program, a federal like poverty-esque type program. I remember one of the sticking points with Cox was that Cox wanted the families to be enrolled in that program to be qualified. And I that was one of the times I'm like, oh yeah, like there are people who qualify who are not part of it for a multitude of different reasons. And those people are even more lost, or even more hard to reach, because they don't want to be in the system because maybe they don't trust the system, right? And
or they don't know they qualify. Or
they don't know they qualify.
One of our previous guests talked about that specifically with healthcare, right? Either they don't know they qualify, or they qualify and they think it's bad to take stuff from the government, or they don't trust the government. And so, it's limiting. And that assumes that they even know how to apply, which if they don't have internet, and that's the main way that you apply for these services, and you want them to have the service to be able to get internet,
it's a chicken or the egg situation. And you highlight a really important part of that. Oh gosh, there's so many things, and we are in a place where mistrust in the government is kind of like super popular right now. And we're in a state where that's like exclamation point, trying to, and then their societal and cultural barriers. Sometimes it is looked down upon in your culture to take something for free.
Yeah.
And so we have to fight that, or that the government has been awful to your community in the past. And so why would I want to give my information, like really sensitive information, to the government? And so we're fighting all of that. So that's something Tulsa Responds, as we move out of reactionary mode, as I hope we come out of this pandemic. Dear Lord, please let us come out of this pandemic. And we move into a proactive mode. We want to start being the conduit that someone knows, oh, I know Tulsa Responds. Tulsa Responds helped me get my internet last year. So when they call me about enrolling in Medicaid, I'm going to answer the phone, or I'm going to answer this email, and I'm going to know that they are just trying to help me. And so that's where we're hoping to be. Is I've likened it to kind of an old-timey operator where we're like, oh, you're calling about this thing, like let me plug you into this hole or this hole. That's where we want to go.
So we've talked a lot about the internet project, which has been a little tough at times.
Understatement of the year.
What's been your most rewarding project that you've taken on? I know you mentioned 802, so that may be the answer, but if there's another one that's been very rewarding for you.
Oh gosh, that's like asking me which of my children.
Which everyone
And-
secretly has an answer for. They're
Yeah,
just not allowed
the,
to say
the
it.
internet project is definitely her least favorite child.
For instance, Jesse's sister is the favored child in his family.
How dare you? I'm obviously the favorite.
Sorry.
As the less favorite child, I take umbrage with what you say about Connects. No, the internet project, I want it so badly.
Yeah.
I want it so badly to work, and we're just keeping at it. We continue to throw spaghetti at the wall. So maybe we can do an update someday when I crack that nut. So the one that we're working on right now, called Get Your Refund Tulsa. It's a partnership with Goodwill Vida. That's volunteer income tax assistance. That one has been really great because we can help get someone money like that day. It's not in their pocket that day, but we've completed all the steps, and the next thing that's going to happen is they're going to get a debit card in the mail, and it's going to have $1,800 on it. So this last week, we did an event at the Wyndham where there are 250 residents who were previously experiencing homelessness. And so we got to help about 40 of them this last week file their taxes so they can get their stimulus check. So after an hour of work, they know that they have an $1,800 paycheck coming to them. And that is like, they're happy and we're happy because we're immediately seeing the positive impact that we're having on their day-to-day life. So that's been one of the best projects to work on.
You also had one where you're helping people register to vote too, right?
Yes.
It was a very short project, but I remember it being fun at the time.
That one, I don't know how many people ended up registering. I think I would have counted that as one of my favorites if the results had just felt stronger. But something that I'm realizing is it's really hard to get people to register to vote in Oklahoma because you cannot do it the day of. You cannot do it for the previous 25 days before an election, which is absurd. It is absurd. And when you have the mayoral election in August and then the presidential in November, that cuts out a huge chunk of time that you would be registering people. And it has to be, you have to actually send in the physical registration. It cannot be online. And so
Take that, Georgia. We already have restrictive voting laws.
Yeah. Coke, don't come here. So are there any, as we're opening up for at least the next 6 months while we're all vaccinated, because apparently that's how long the vaccine lasts. So prepare to get
Maybe
shots
longer.
again.
We don't know yet.
Yeah, we don't know. What are some opening up ideas that have been bounced around, or projects that, since we can in limited numbers see people in person, that you even either you've been approached to help with or that you would like to help with?
So one that we're starting these now is kind of a tandem event where I think the future of a lot of what Tulsa Responds does is working with families that have children, because most of them will be going to a school. And so that's a nice little hub of, where a high concentration of families that can use these services. So we're doing, well, I guess I should not reference specific dates because these things will have already happened by the time you're listening to this, dear listener. But we will have done very successful events at Hawthorne Elementary where you can both get your taxes filed and sign up for free internet in one. And so I'd like to be doing more of those when we have additional projects that I would love it if we could have like a little mobile trailer or something, like a Tulsa Responds mobile where we just park in front of the school and have people come out and sign up for all of the things that they're eligible for.
I hope if you do that, you have an air horn so that every time someone's successful, because I feel like that would get more and more people. Because they'd be like, that's an awesome air horn. I got to walk over there and see what's going on.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, Jesse, I think we might need a contract here.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. I can tell you this. Don't buy an air horn on Amazon. It's a boat horn. It's the wrong sound. I have 2 of them now. It's the one thing you can't return to Amazon. So it's just ooh, it's that noise. Not as fun. So.
Actually, Jesse, I'm surprised you didn't go off on a rant when we were talking about internet, because you often like to rant about how internet should be a utility.
Alyssa,
should be.
She already knows, as does all of GKFF now, of my feelings about the internet.
It seems like the obvious solution is just to blanket the town in a strong Wi-Fi signal so people don't have to sign up for expensive internet
that would be the good
able
idea.
to connect to essential services.
Yeah. Listen, I'm with you. Like, we can happily rant about it. At this point now, I'm angrier at the just sort of America's internet speed standard that we're at, because we are way behind. Even for internet we're paying for, we're not even getting the speeds that, a small Eastern European country is getting. So
it absolutely should be a utility, because everything you do is online. Literally in order to get any service, the best way and the in a pandemic, the only way is to do it online.
Yeah. School, work. I mean, school work for most people, shopping, so many things that were already being done, but we're getting kind of hand waved away as, it's not essential. You can do them in person. Well, for the period of close to a year, that was the only way to do it.
If we can't have private healthcare, though, do you think the internet providers are going to be like, yes, we will just let you take our cash cow and make it a public utility?
Listen, I'm glad you said it, because I was going to say it, but I didn't want to get you in trouble. So
I mean, we value corporations in our country, and that makes sense. I mean, we're a capitalist country. There needs to be a better way. Maybe that there's a minimum speed or something. I don't know.
It seems
too many things to think through.
It seems like it wouldn't be too hard to have we'll use the idea of universal basic income as an example. Just have a baseline internet that everybody qualifies for, and then if you want to be able to, stream your 4K video without, at a faster speed, you can pay for that.
That should absolutely be something that there should be certain websites that you can get onto no matter what.
Yeah.
And that should be the city government website, any sort of, you have to register for a service.
Yeah.
You should just be able to do that. Like on an airplane, you can get onto the American Airlines.
Check your flight
check
status,
and that's
whatever.
It. We need to have that version of the internet available to everybody.
And here's the great thing.
We've solved it.
Listen,
solved it. All right.
Cox and AT&T and Comcast, if you're listening, we're still going to have to rent that bandwidth from you, so you're still going to get money. It's going to be okay. And also, we're worth to take a moment to slam AT&T, who originally was supposed to be a partner in this project and was not.
Yikes, Jesse! Really, really. I'm
By
gonna
the way,
have to go. No, just kidding.
Listen, AT&T, I want that Gigablast here now, and I want it now.
AT&T really wants to protect their customers' information, and Cox does too. It was just there are so many. That's part of the problem, is that we were working with the local version or the local offices of a national company. And so to get them to say yes to the things that we were talking about in that room, it has to be run up so many flagpoles.
Yeah.
So it's just so many people, so many cooks in that kitchen.
Yeah.
Well, and like a national corporation and a city government during a pandemic, not the most fast acting naturally,
No.
right? And so it was, for us, I remember we were just like, oh my God, we're still deciding this. Like, because we were used to just like, all right, we're going to decide this now, we're going to run with it. And it was really like a slamming on the brakes, tire squealing sort of situation. We're like, oh, we have no control over the situation. Like, we want to help, but we can't help until it starts.
Did you ever think about?
I was literally canceling plans because I'm like, this thing is this contract is going to be finalized today, so next week is going to be crazy. So I have to cancel all my plans, and then it wouldn't happen for a month.
I was nervous about going on this camping trip in July.
Oh gosh!
Because I was worried this thing was going to start and I was going to be helping, and it obviously did not start in July or August
Or
and-
September.
or September. And
Yeah.
then I got COVID, and then I don't remember a lot of things. So
So at some point, did you think about just having everybody from Tulsa Responds putting their phone in tether mode and just drive around town and let people connect for a few minutes?
listen, we thought
That's
about
a
it.
great idea. Where were you? Where were you this
I know.
summer?
Well, and that was one of the things is that we knew people had cell phones.
Yeah.
Right. Especially like in the Latinx community where we knew we were going to have a language barrier problem as well as like a trust problem. We knew they had cell phones. So we knew they had access to some kind of internet, meaning they could fill out like an online form if we had it, right? But it had to be in Spanish and it had to be correct, which has been another problem other nonprofits have had when they try to translate things into Spanish. I won't name them.
You mean using like the Google Translate and hoping the direct translation
Yep.
is the correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
I have a wonderful translator to refer them to, so you just pass their name along.
I think I was asking originally about what was coming next, which was
That's right.
that was you talking about the in-person events with taxes and signing
Back
people
off
up
the
for that.
rails.
Yes.
Get back on the rails.
School's going to be out in about a month-ish or so. And then the fact that a lot of TPS students still don't have access to the internet is still going to be a problem. And so,
They still have at least one day a week right now is virtual.
yeah. And I don't even know whatever happened with the end date issue where Cox didn't want to cut them off, but the city did because we didn't want them to get charged.
Right.
Are you going to be sending out notifications to all the people who have signed up since then? Or is that a future Marcela problem?
That's an October Marcella problem.
Okay.
We'll let them know.
All right.
Let them know, and I think they will get advance notice from Cox as well.
Hey, good thing it started late, so then you don't have to worry about this until later.
Yes,
It kind of worked out.
yes.
So Tulsa Responds is in the process of becoming a 501c3, correct? That was big news around the same time as the cable internet project.
Yeah, we were working on both of those things, transitioning. Oh my gosh, the month of August and September were basically like one of the worst of my life. Just so much going on this internet project. We moved our business, like we were being taken from Atento and then moving under the Tulsa Community Foundation umbrella. Ugh, it was very stressful. So
It did feel like you've moved 3 times during this pandemic. I know it's only been once.
No, we moved from 30. We were above 36 degrees north. Then we moved. Well, we didn't have furniture to move, but we moved from Chicago to Tulsa, then to a house we were renting. Then we lived in a temporary house for a month because our contractors are the worst. Happy to pass along their names as people to not use. I will name names. And then we moved into our house in September and then lived with it under construction until February. Anyway, that was the other 2 years of stress that is in my body.
You also have a young daughter.
Oh, who is the best?
She's joined many meetings.
Yes.
She's delightful.
Yes, she has aged me backwards because she is amazing and my heart's delight. So, yeah, what were we talking about? My daughter?
Yeah.
Yes, she's great.
So where are you in the 501c3 process? I know it takes like a year, right?
I
Ish.
mean, we are. I think we're just going to camp out at under TCF for at least I would say till the summer, until there is an urgent need for us to become a 501c3, because I don't have the bandwidth to do it. There's nothing that we can't do as an under TCF that we could do as a 501c3. So I'm just going to try to not make all of my hairs gray and just chill. The one thing I can just relax on, I will do it.
Yeah. So what technically is Tulsa Responds now, like corporation-y wise, classification wise?
We are a thing under TCF, I think is the technical term.
A lot of nonprofits, especially smaller ones in Tulsa, start as basically a program under TCF until they sort of graduate to their own.
Like the Tulsa Voter Van for one. And
Tulsa Hub.
Yeah.
I think technically we are a fund under the Tulsa Community Foundation is what we are.
Yeah.
So do you actually work out of their offices on 71st and Yale or wherever it is?
No, so they we could if we wanted to. I don't think. Well, so when we had the second wave in September, I think they had everyone work remotely, and that's when we officially went under the TCF umbrella. So my office is in my house, and that's it. And I will happily be there for as long as I can be. I have ADHD, and so being around other people as much, I love it, but I get nothing done. I'm a social butterfly, and so if I have, I'm seeing a knowing look.
How dare you?
At Jesse.
Here's the thing, there's a balance. Yes. If I'm left alone, I become depressed and also not productive. So there has to be but yes, like the more people and sounds are happening, it's harder for me to concentrate.
No, people will be having a conversation outside of my door in another office, and I'll be like, what was that? Like my brain cannot turn it off. And so for me, as bad as it sounds, the pandemic workplace environment has been the most productive I've ever had, because I don't have, the only distractions I have are the ones that I create for myself. So I do love being around people. So being able to choose when I'm around them is perfect. So when we are able to be more in person, I think I'll try to do a couple days in a shared office environment.
Yeah, I was starting to really drag after working 100% from home for a while, and then we went to a couple days in the office, a couple days at home, and that's about perfect.
This is what I love about. I mean, let's pull a silver lining out of a cloud of. Can we curse? I'm not gonna. I'm gonna share this with my parents.
A cloud of.
Beep, beep, beep.
Yeah, here, I'll add the bleep later. A pile of shit.
Jesse.
There we go. The sad trombone.
So my silver lining is that businesses and companies are realizing that we can work remotely. My last job was like, nope, we are not a work from home situation. Like, that is just not our culture. And it's like, oh, well, but if you have to be. And so for me, this has been a very good move for me to learn how I can be most productive.
I mean, I will say, like, since I was sort of working from home already when this pandemic started, it removed the one outside stimulation I had, which was like coffee meetings and lunch meetings outside. And so it was just me staring at my screen, editing something, which I can do for pockets of 45 minutes. And the moment I realize that I've been concentrating so hard, I have now lost that concentration and then have to go do something else for, however long. It's like, if I'm not thinking about it, I can concentrate.
Well, I'm concentrating really hard and I'm done.
Well, again, like for people with ADD and ADHD, like the reason we're good at video games is because if you're getting small dopamine hits every couple of seconds, like you can keep going. And my brain has now translated edits, like making a cut, as a dopamine hit. So every time I make an edit, like even if I'm annoyed because someone's umming or hitting the table, it's still like...
Hint, hint, hint.
Yeah, Chris. So I've been able to sort of retrain my brain in that way because I have to do it. But the amount of productivity, like there was a productivity wave and then a drop during the pandemic where people were being super productive and then less so as they were just sort of sad because they were. But if people were given the choice about where to work, I think the future of work is going to be really interesting. I mean, the work-life balance has been completely destroyed, but
awful.
We were going to lose that battle anyway, so might as well just get a benefit of working from home out of it. So
I think we'll see that there's waves of work-life balance too. I'm lucky that I have a lot of freedom to set my own schedule, and so I can work a little bit on weekends and I can do a little bit of house stuff on the weekdays, and that to me is fair. And I have these times when it's like productive, and then like the following week where I'm just like, I can't get anything done.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're seeing a little bit of a culture shift from the idea of working is being in one spot from 8 to 5.
Yes.
Regardless of what gets accomplished, you have to be
Yes.
there versus, you have goals that you accomplish, and however you do that over whatever time period is fine as long as you hit your goals and
How
meet
many
your timeline.
things am I crossing off of my list versus how many hours did I spend sitting in this chair?
Yeah. Some of that's a generational. So as
I
certain
still
older.
feel a little guilty if I'm
Oh,
not
yeah,
there
I
from
do
9
too.
to 5, even though I will also be there from 9 p.m. to 1 in the morning. I'm like, but I wasn't there for like that full 9 to 5 block. But no, we have to, everything has to shift.
Yeah, Boomer is so efficient with their time. So normally in these remote interviews we've been doing, we one of our questions was, have you stayed sane during this pandemic? You, I know for a fact, were building this organization from the ground up, so you didn't have a lot of free time, and you were also moving and other things. But now that we are back in the room together,
Hiring terrible contractors.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
other things.
this one guy named Jesse's the worst.
No, I think it means for my house.
I'm sorry for the house.
Listen,
So you're good at hiring one kind of contractor, but bad at hiring a different kind of contractor.
No, I will shout out to our director of operations, Levi State, who is wonderful at hiring contractors, aka navigators for Tulsa Responds. That was pre you, but you and Levi were in like the same navigator cohort. You were just one of the wonderful people who said yes early on. But go ahead.
I was just I didn't get to say this earlier. Like I had some great conversations with local business owners. Like I talked to Camille of Camille's Sidewalk Cafe. Like I spoke with her.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they just wanted to know someone was helping them, even if they didn't end up getting any money. They just wanted that connection, and it was really immensely rewarding. And my only sad part was not knowing whether they actually got the money or not. There was no way to easily follow up because they were still under stress. And, again, like my memory is just like, there was a Friday at 5 p.m. thing where the Trump's Treasury Secretary like rewrote some of the rules, and we had just had a training at like 3 p.m. on that Friday and had to get retrained the next day. And I was like, every first call was, I don't know, but I'm gonna look into it and get back to you. That was what we said all the time, and it was immensely rewarding because we all didn't know what was happening. And
by the way, I think that is a skill that more people need. Businesses, nonprofits, government. People try too hard to make something up on the spot. I think saying, I don't know, but I will find out for you is sometimes the best response you can give somebody.
Yeah. And our navigators, like, we have some of the best, absolute best people living in Tulsa that work for Tulsa Responds. And that is what they do, is they're kind of like that, the grandkid who helps grandma or grandpa like turn on their computer. They're like, okay, I don't know how to do this thing that my grandparent needs to do, but I'm going to figure it out. And they will call them back and they will do that. We've had navigators. Jesse, I think that you stayed on the phone with someone. I think this was you, where there was a woman who her kids could not come and help her because of the pandemic, and they didn't have the time to walk her through it. Jesse, was this you? And you walked her through every step?
it's possible. I mean, that sounds like
2
something I would
full
do.
hours?
Yeah. Possibly, yeah.
Just so that she could apply for this loan for her business.
Yeah, there were so many calls where I had to put on my technology hat too to explain certain things. Where again, like if you're running a restaurant, you don't necessarily know how like online forms and copying and pasting and other things work, and so you have to forget all of your assumptions about what someone may or may not know.
Yeah.
And because again, it's not like these were easy forms to fill out or easy to find. Even I mean, the SBA tried very hard to make their website much more user friendly than it was before. But it was still like the rules were changing so quickly, and there was like even I who got an EIDL loan and then paid it back recently just because I didn't want to get charged interest on it. Like paying it back was the instructions on how to pay it back incredibly hard to find, and a lot of these people
They didn't think anyone was actually going to do it.
I know, and one like pulled back on my call center experience and also just my desire to help other people, especially when there's a technology problem. It was great.
So I didn't, my free time was pulling my hair out over our contractors, and I'm supposed to look around in this room and find something.
Okay, so the question is, so this is my lifelong collection of nerd items. And we ask our guests to like find something that like calls to them either because they also love it or they are so confused by it they want to know what it is.
The pick is obvious.
What is it?
And that's why I'm making it so quickly.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to think about it. The Golden Girl bobblehead.
Oh, yes.
Am I basic that's what I said?
No,
Because
It's actually a recurring pick.
because they're
so I
awesome.
am. So
Well,
yes,
I
I
think
am.
it's been picked once.
One of the
By
oh,
someone
that's
who's
right.
really great.
Yes, and we actually even talked with them about doing a Golden Girls podcast. I
That's
think
right.
at some point.
We did. And yes, I love those. It was the thing my mom and I did together. We watched the Golden Girls.
Aw.
And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like you want to learn how to time a joke. Watch the Golden Girls. That is
They're so witty.
Mm-hmm.
And I think perhaps like the first like sexually liberated woman was Blanche. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
truly think that she was the first one to be like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I'm getting down. Often. Yeah, I mean, it's it's still like a sitcom of its time, but in some ways it was unique as it was just for older women, not normally who a sitcom is written around,
Mm-hmm.
who all like had their own sort of unique issues and problems they were dealing with, and
It's truly a miracle that it existed.
yeah, and that
Like how did
I mean, it would be
pitched that?
difficult to
Who
make
pitched
today.
that?
yeah,
I don't think it would like
Yeah,
no one would well, Grace and Frankie
that's
is
Yeah,
the closest thing, but that's
Yeah.
you
Like,
know, on
Netflix might have made it, but it would have
Right.
had to have been casted differently because none of them were big celebrities at the time. They
Mm-hmm.
need
who I want to know the history of Golden Girls, how that was sold
Yeah.
in a room that someone pitched 4 elderly women, one of which was the mother of one of
Yes.
the elderly women, and that someone said, "Yes, I will give you money."
Yep. It had one direct spinoff and then a quasi spinoff. Like their
Mm-hmm.
neighbors became a spinoff. They after the show ended, they bought a hotel and it was them running the hotel without Dorothy. It didn't last very long.
welcome to Golden Gap.
Yeah, listen. People would listen to that. It's a whole generation of people who love the Golden
Someone
Girls.
is already doing a podcast
Oh, I'm
about the
sure.
Golden
Someone
Girls,
would
right?
listen, if they haven't, I'm buying that URL right now. So
Golden Gab.
yeah,
I mean, Chris said it first.
that's
Yeah.
true. Listen, he'd be on it even though
Yeah,
he came
yeah.
to Golden Girls late.
Yeah.
So.
Don't mind me. I am just I'm definitely not buying a URL right now on my
Yeah.
phone.
Unfortunately, I think Cox owns it, so it'll take about a year to negotiate getting that.
Too soon.
Too soon?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Too soon.
Yeah.
Be
I
very
could have
hard.
said AT&T has it, and they're just not going to let you have it.
It's true. Like AT&T. I'm angry at them for 2 reasons.
Google's going to do it and just make it really, really difficult for you to sign up
Yep.
for it.
Yeah, or they're going to start doing it, do it in 2 cities, and then abandon it, as they did with their internet. So it's like, make up your mind, Google. Seriously.
Jesse's never going to get a big corporate sponsorship.
Nope. Nor do I want one. Because then I have to think about what I'm saying before I say it.
Couldn't say things like Georgie's.
That's right.
You should definitely leave that in with zero context.
I'm going to. Listen, that's for our Patreon listeners. So if you want to hear about Georgie's, you're going to have to give me some money.
Bonus content.
Yes. I've got that Patreon set up. Well, Marcela, thank you for being our first guest in person without a mask, and for reliving the pain and stress that has been this both crazy but I think wonderful year for you as you've been building Tulsa Responds from literally a meeting.
Response?
Responds.
With a Z.
Yeah.
Z.
With a Z.
It's a silent and invisible Z.
Okay.
I probably am gonna have to clarify. There is no Z. I was just kidding. It's responds.
If people want to
Response.
read on the internet about Tulsa Responds, where can they go?
www.tulsaresponds.org. Pretty much all you're going to see there is a form to get free internet. So please don't fill that out because we will call you. We will spend our time and money on you. But please, I don't know, Jesse. I don't know where they could actually find more out about it because our website is just basically how do we make this as easy as possible for someone to sign up for the internet and not get lost in some other page.
So they'll have to listen to this podcast.
You
to
should
find
just
out more.
listen. Yeah, you've pretty much heard everything you should. One thing I didn't say that I really do want to toot Tulsa Responds horn is that one of our partnerships with TEDC, we went on to do another program with them for some forgivable loans within Tulsa County, and we helped TEDC give $57 million with an M dollars in loans to local businesses, and the vast majority of that is forgivable. And
Awesome.
a lot of these businesses didn't know that they're forgivable, and so our tenacious navigators were calling them incessantly until they answered, so that they would fill out the application for the forgiveness, so that they could just get money for their business. And hopefully dozens or hundreds of your favorite Tulsa businesses are still going to be in business when we come out of this pandemic because of some of the work of our really dedicated navigators and, of course, TEDC.
That's awesome. So if people want to help, either give money or something,
Or become a navigator.
become a
like-
navigator, how can they do that?
So if you want to help, just generally wear a mask and get vaccinated, just to help our society
That
out.
means you, Broken Arrow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get your shit together.
2, if they wanted to be a navigator, you can shoot me an email, Marcela, Marcela, at Tulsa Responds, responds.org. So that's if they want to be a navigator. What were your other questions?
If they want to, give money or something.
Oh, if you want to, so, I mean, if you
You
have,
want to throw out your Cash App or Venmo, maybe?
yeah. I will say pay your taxes, because a lot of what we're doing is basically repaid in taxes. Vote, register to vote, and just be a good human. And then tell people, if you know of someone who, if they make around $57,000, their household makes around $57,000 or less, send them to Tulsa Responds. Just spread the name of Tulsa Responds.
Unless they're in business for themselves.
And if they're in business for themselves and they need some navigators, then they can also shoot me an email. We're happy to be mercenaries for good.
Yes, Mercenaries for Good. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
It's good.
Well,
I like it.
Again, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Thank you all for listening to our conversation with Marcela. Tulsa Responds does a lot of fantastic work, a very small amount of it done by me. So if you need help with your taxes or getting low-cost internet, reach out to them, www.tulsaresponds with an S. Speaking of the internet, please follow Pod for Good on Facebook and on Instagram and on the Twitters. And of course, please subscribe or follow or whatever Apple's calling it now. There was a lot of podcast news from Apple today. And leave a review if you can. And as always, Tulsa, get it done. Broken Arrow, get your shit together. And still, if you're out in public in an enclosed space, wear a mask.